Good morning and welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Greenwich Board of Selectmen. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to this regular meeting of the board. There are copies of the meeting's agenda on the table as you come in, along with any of the materials that we'll be considering in public session today. Item number 2 on our agenda is to approve minutes from the regular meeting that was held on September 20th, as well as a special meeting held on September 27th. Entertain motions on the 20th, should there be no corrections.
So moved.
Without objection. And on the 27th, the special meeting?
So moved.
Without objection. Okay, updates on October 3rd, there was an after-action review meeting with representatives of Eversource to review the causes of the widespread power outages of September 4th and 5th. In addition to myself, the town was represented by Police Chief Jim Hebe, Assistant Fire Chief Bob Kick, Emergency Management Director Dan Warzoa, GEM's Executive Director Tracy Sheetinger, as well as Deputy Commissioner of Public Works Amy Siebert and Barbara Hines, my Executive Assistant. The Eversource team promised to forward us an explanation in layman's terms that would provide more information to the public. We received that this morning. I'm going to share it and then we'll distribute it. The date of outages was September 4th and 5th. The event started at 4:50 p.m. on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018, during the peak load period. All Eversource equipment and lines were operating well below their ratings at that time. One circuit between the North Greenwich substation was out of service from the previous weekend and under maintenance for a circuit breaker. 2 underground circuits faulted within 30 minutes of each other. Field crews subsequently found 2 faults on each circuit. To prevent damage to another circuit, Eversource disconnected the remaining line to the Prospect substation. Because multiple circuits were out, customers supplied from the Prospect Street and North Greenwich substations were interrupted for several hours. As load fell off the system, customers were restored. However, some customers had to be resupplied from stations other than those normally used. For example, the Glenville area was transferred from its normal Prospect Street feed to the North Greenwich substation until the system was returned to normal on Thursday, September 6th. All customers were restored by midnight on Tuesday, September 4th, and repairs on the underground circuits were completed by Thursday, September 6th. Eversource supplied generators to a number of large customers in the town for the duration of the events to relieve load from the system until all circuits were restored. No utility can guarantee future outages won't occur. Various work improvements, however, have been identified that can lessen the potential for additional outages. Project plans are being designed and are close to a final draft. These plans include the following: installing a higher capacity cable on the 11R53 and 11R54 circuits, replacing the area cable along the right-of-way between the Prospect and Coscop substations. Eversource will share final project plans with the town in addition to comprehensive communications and outreach. So this summarizes what we heard in a very lengthy and I would say academic meeting with graphs of this all laid out. I did take pictures of it on my cell phone, but candidly, if I tried to explain it to anybody, it would come out wrong. So I won't. I relied upon them. But this is the distribution system, and what we came away with feeling is that, there were issues in areas. Because of those issues, and it was mentioned in the beginning of the outline, it put pressure on the other feeders, and when those went down, it's like cards. They're juggling to try and shift the load. The lines get very hot, they said. Of course, one of the questions we asked, well, why not upgrade the lines? They say they do so, but the fact is, no matter what happens, if you don't have a more expansive distribution or check, you're going to wind up tripping up lines. So we expect more from them, but this was received again this morning to really explain what, in our view, was not acceptable. I think, there should be greater dependability because it's very disruptive. To their credit, to be fair, they anticipated some of the issue once they realized they had this mechanic problem, and they brought in generators, and for that, we applaud them.
I'm just going to comment. I'm new to this, but I read it, and maybe I read it from a different perspective, and I don't purport to understand it all. But so they say they're now going to install a higher capacity cable. Why now? I mean, what are they thinking about in advance? I mean, it's fine to react when something goes wrong, but I would think we ought to be able to expect a little more from them. I mean,
I agree with you.
I would think the CEO, certainly if it were me, I'd be all over these guys. Come on, that's their job. It's fine to say we can't be perfect. I got that. This is far from that.
I agree. I think that they've been sort of deflecting for a long time,
Yes.
and that's why we've asked to put a spotlight on this, because their focus, of course, has been the generation in the substation project. It hasn't been on this. And
But you're right. The distribution is key. I mean, the
Yeah.
people in town have to get the electricity.
And when you look at the maps, and maybe we could print them out or get them, I mean, I don't know, the photos I took are, you see a very, I would say antiquated, but, they added a substation in Old Greenwich, I want to say, 40 years ago? But when you look at the town and you see this Tomac substation, you realize that one of the questions I asked is what we've asked here, about capacity. With all the redevelopment that's taking place and the higher demand, is this system equipped? And Barbara, refresh my memory, they didn't really have a good answer, in my view. It's sort of like, well, we just keep going along. I didn't really get an answer to that. And we asked planning and zoning that, and planning doesn't necessarily take that into consideration. I think we were told that from Mr. Maitland when he was here. They don't think in terms of that, so.
No, he did say that. But, you get into philosophical, but this is one of the problems with a public utility. They are not thinking ahead. They are not planning. They're reacting. And meanwhile,
We're
people suffer.
suffering. Yeah, we're suffering. And to think that they will have water now, too. They run water. That's a scary.
That's the next problem.
Yeah.
The North Greenwich substation, is that the one on Old Mill?
Yeah, Old Millen. So more to come on this in terms of, I think, keeping a spotlight on it, no pun intended, is important, because otherwise we don't get the answers. If we had not demanded the meeting, we would not have gotten the response.
Yeah.
On Friday, I was one of several town officials to participate in Fire Ops 101 at the North Street Fire Training Center. This was the first year that the Greenwich Fire Services, in conjunction with the local 1042, put together a very instructive program. This program included participants from local government as well as the press. We had a gentleman from News 12 Connecticut, as well as Joe Croker from the Greenwich Time. There were essentially 4 scenarios that were covered. The first one that we participated in was with groups of 3. And then with that group, there was a professional firefighter assigned, as well as support staff. The first one was to simulate a smoke-filled building. It required to wear the oxygen mask and full gear. It was on a 2nd floor. We actually extended out hose, and we proceeded to the 2nd floor to a staged area where there were red flashing lights, and the goal was to obviously shoot the water to downplay the flare. What the takeaway from that scenario was, for me, as a participant, is one, your dependability upon your colleagues is essential. Without them, your life and the lives of the people you're looking to rescue are at risk. Two, you're wearing about 60 pounds of equipment, and for someone who's not accustomed and trained, it obviously was a very compelling experience. And three, like any of us, if you're put in a dark location and you've got smoke and you don't know where you are, it can become very anxiety provoking. Now, our firefighters, men and women, have excellent training, but roll that forward to any one of our commercial buildings or homes where they don't know the layout, like the training facility. It becomes abundantly clear that this is a high-risk job, one that requires physical strength, agility, and quick judgment. So that exercise was very well carried out. The second one involved putting out an automobile fire. There's a simulated vehicle. They use natural gas, propane, to illuminate it. And again, speed is of the essence in my takeaway, because you have potential for explosion. We learned that most of the gas tanks today, which I did not know, even though I thought they were metal of some sort, they're saying they're plastic, and they have a short time span in which, if ignited, they would endure. So you've got that challenge. Plus, you've got conditions on highways where you have moving traffic around you, often while you're responding to these. So that was very informative in terms of, you never stand behind a vehicle. A lot of the bumpers, they say today, are equipped with some type of compression so that it, under the heat, could blow off. You always attack the fire from the side of the vehicle, also knowing that there are people inside. We didn't have to even think about that, but that just gives you the complexity. Third was an actual vehicle entry using the various tools that are on our equipment, the jaws of life and various prying materials. Clearly, we were in a controlled situation, but trying to roll forward the Merritt Parkway, often embankment, young children in the car, time is of the essence. Staffing is key. You need to have the requisite number of personnel there to support the whole exercise, leading to ideally a chain for survival. Finally, we all were drawn into a room with a real fire. We were asked to see how long we could endure the heat. It was not easy, I will tell you. You had to get down on your knees to really sustain. My knees are not that great, so I did do it, but it was compelling. In fact, the temperature in this facility got up to 1,000 degrees. All the more reason why the equipment is so important, and the level of equipment that one wears. I had no idea you have, not in addition to the mask, you got something that goes over that, plus layers of protective clothing. So I think this was a very beneficial exercise for not just me, but more for the public, that the press was invited, and I anticipate they will be doing it again. So Leslie, perhaps you'll be the next class of Fire Ops 102. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. But again, in light of the discussions we're having in town about additional fire coverage and the need for it, I think it was planned just to be clear, in advance of that, because this just didn't get put together a month ago. It's been talked about since last year when we were discussing how best to go about educating people and really what the role of a firefighter is, and it's far more expansive than one might realize.
They invited us to just like 7 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's especially timely. It may turn out that it's serendipitous, but yeah.
Well, people might presume that, but I mean, because it took time to get all the planning into it, because they all, so, again, I just want to applaud them, and I did make the comment, and I might be criticized for it, but I'm saying that personally, is that, to me, it's a young person's job, and when I said that, meaning your physical demands placed on one's body to do this, is one I could tell you, at pushing, God willing, 50 years old, maybe if a 50-year-old is in better shape, they could do it. I'm not. But I'm just saying, it takes a lot of toll on your body. And that's why they told us, too, that, many of the firefighters who do succumb, who die, it's due to heart and, the trauma and everything that you face day to day. It's not actually on the scene. Could be you could go through a very enduring exercise, go home, and have a myocardial infarction. So I think it gets us to think about what perhaps people may think is, if they respond to calls, there's only a limited number of fires. There's a lot that happens, and again, thanks to Josh Howley, Doug Howley. Doug Howley, and his team who put it all together. We had a number of awareness-type events here. The first one was on October 1st, which is the Breast Cancer Awareness Flag Raising with the Breast Cancer Alliance. The October 2nd was the YWCA's Domestic Abuse Awareness Month. We proclaim that here. There's a giant purple purse that was put outside to, again, bring attention to this. It's the #1 reported crime in the town of Greenwich. I believe I got that right? Think about it, #1 violent crime. Also, there was the opening of the renovated and expanded Greenwich Historical Society campus on October 6th. I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to go, to do so. It is really magnificent, the cultural and historic resources that are available here in our town, and that project was 100% funded, paid for, and I believe they have an endowment set up, so kudos to those folks who led that, Davida Strackbine, Peter and Isabel Malkin, and others. We also received notification from Sustainable Connecticut. You may recall we signed on last year to this. It was notifying us that we are designated as a silver certificate community. We're one of only 5 towns and cities to achieve this. This is going to be recognized at CCM's convention, where they're going to have a presentation about celebrating success and learning for the future. This has been undertaken through the Eastern Connecticut State University, and again, we're pleased to receive that designation.
Is the silver the highest, or is there gold?
There are no gold at the present time. If you recall, there are several criteria that they look to, not just, it has to do with energy, environment, diversity, economic development. I want to say there's like 9 areas of measurement they look at, and those components helped us get to that level. Today, we're beginning the Experience Greenwich Week. This is something that you've heard about before. There is a map that you may have received, right? Passport. Make sure I use the right term. I have to say, I'm looking forward to going to check out some of the art in the galleries. It's the first time it's ever been undertaken, and one we're looking forward to hearing people's reaction to. We also received in the mail here a thank you note from Alexander Grady. This was sent by Alexander Grady. It was sent through the town's email system, so people are using the new format, and they wanted to thank myself as well as Selectman Lipback for their words last night in support of the District 10 SOMAR. My wife and 3 of my girls spoke as well in favor of the motion. It was great for all of them to see civic activity in action. Anyhow, I do want to just acknowledge their time for responding to us. Also received a letter from David Hardman, who sits on our Planning and Zoning Commission, and he wrote to Chief Heavey saying, I want to thank you and your Marine Department for locating my motorboat, which had been lifted off its boat lift during the extreme high tide this past Sunday night morning. The desk officer was very helpful and professional, as was the officer who had gone out into Coscop Harbor, located my boat, and advised me on retrieving it. I apologize that I didn't keep their names, but do want you and your department to know how much the citizens of town appreciate your service. Very truly yours, Dave Hardman. And Dave's a recent addition to our planning and zoning. And then finally, received communication addressed to myself, the Chief of Police, the Board of Ed, and Ralph Mayo. On behalf of the Greenwich High School PTA, we'd like to thank you for adding a second SRO to the Greenwich High School campus. We greatly appreciate your support and concern for keeping our children safe. School safety is now more than ever a top concern for our parent community. The addition of a second SRO is the first step in improving safety for our students, but let's keep the momentum going. We fully support the plans to secure the main entrance at GHS as proposed in the master plan. The GHS PTA will utilize all efforts to advocate for making this much-needed safety improvement a top priority. We look forward to working with all of you as we continue to make GHS a safe and secure learning environment. Thank you again for your support and concern. Ann Fesh and Maureen Bonanno, GHS PTA co-presidents.
Fine what SRO was.
SRO,
Yeah, did you mention, was it mentioned? Go ahead.
School Resource Officer.
Yeah.
Okay. That concludes the updates. Under old business, we had two items that were on our agendas before. The first one, 4A, was changes to this residential parking program on streets Lake Drive, Stewart Drive, and Chapel Lane. Do we have any update on that, Barbara?
According to Town Administrator Branyan, that is going to be delayed because they are still in the process of notifying all of the residents that would be affected by the change.
Great, okay. And then the next item, I'm going to turn to my, the next item, I'm going to turn to my colleague, Sandy lived back here, but just as a way of introduction, the town has 7 constables. The constables are elected in odd years, as are all town offices. There are duties assigned to them in terms of service of process for legal documentation. There was a gentleman by the name of Michael Patacco, who succeeded his late father. No, not Lou. I'm drawing, Phil, thank you. I'm having, Phil Patacco, when he suddenly passed. Michael has relocated to Maine, and therefore the position is vacant. There are, again, seven positions. This position happened to be nominated or essentially appointed by the Democratic Party, so it's up to really them to recommend someone to us for consideration.
Yeah, and this is to fill the balance of the term. Obviously, there will be an election again next year. In the interim, we recommend Dawn Fortunato to be constable to fill out the balance of that term.
Second.
So we know Dawn very well. Dawn is an active member of the community, particularly in Chickahominy, where she resides, and has been very involved in a lot of issues, which is great to see. So I'm happy to hear that, and you moved a second?
Yeah, okay,
So in term expiring December 31st?
Whenever it expires, the end of the calendar year, probably, sometime in December?
December 1st.
December 1? Okay.
I think it's actually 31st, Barb. All those go through the end of the, we're December 1st, but I think they're all through.
Everything is
And
December 3rd.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And she actually called me on Friday on 3 things. This was one of them. So if she's listening, 1 down, 2 to go in terms of.
You don't want to tell us about the other 2.
Okay, the new business, looking at our schedule for the remainder of this year, we're just making some adjustments. And then we're beginning to prepare for 2019.
I'm just curious, looking at this, Barbara, why did we have, not this, how come we had back-to-back weeks, the 8th and the 15th? Wouldn't that have been?
Because of Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Thanksgiving's
the
on the 4th.
22nd, yeah. No, it's the 22nd, yeah. I got you.
So it's really up to you folks to decide whether you want one meeting or two meetings, perhaps on a different day of the week instead of Thursdays for November.
We're just required to have one meeting a month, so however you want to fill it.
Do we have one scheduled for the 29th, or no? No, it looks like it's December 6th, okay. Never mind.
And one thing to consider is that in having a meeting in November to try to meet the deadline for the RTM call for December for appointments.
And what is that deadline?
I believe it's the 16th. Let me just-
Of November?
I believe it is Friday the 16th.
I propose.
Yes,
we-
it is.
Why don't we meet on the 7th? Does that work?
On that Wednesday, Peter,
I
that's,
can do Wednesday that week.
would you want to do Monday the 5th?
Okay, but remember, the meeting room is not available here. And,
That's right.
and they may even be using
The
the
Cohen.
Cohen room for elections.
How about, is the 19th or 20th moving, or, oh, I guess that's too late for, the RTM.
Our next meeting is, after this is what, the 29th?
No,
We have the
25th.
25th.
The
25th.
25th? Seems like it's. The first seems too quick, right?
What could we possibly have to talk about?
The appointments.
Appointments? Do we have a lot coming up?
We have several that are coming up.
Let me just double check with the
When?
date.
Next year? Or this year?
That need to be dealt with by the December RTM meeting. So we need to have everything. I'm looking to schedule interviews for the next October meeting, so that either take votes then or in early November to meet the call deadline.
should we do November 1?
I can do that.
I already have it penciled in.
Okay. That's
You're ahead of us.
That's a Thursday, right?
It is.
Okay.
November 1?
November 1 it is.
Okay.
That'll be the only meeting for November.
Yeah, barring some need to.
Yeah, because the RTM doesn't meet in November.
That's right. RTM doesn't meet in November.
favor?
Aye.
So the October schedule, remaining schedule in December also look fine?
The 6th and the 20th? Yeah, don't see mine.
Let me just check the 20th. I think I'm out the 20th, but I don't know for sure, so let's leave it for now, and then I'll come back.
Okay. Maybe we won't have a need for it.
Okay.
So nothing more on that, now we're looking at next year. September.
Nothing I know of at this point.
Okay. So we'll
When do we have to finalize that, or I say finalize it, publicize it, whatever the right word is?
I don't think there's necessarily a legal requirement, but typically it's done
To
in
secure-
October,
All
November.
it is done at this time? Okay.
Isn't it partly to secure the rooms?
And that's also the other reason.
Partly, but I mean,
Okay.
so we could always adjust it.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting schedule as,
I'll move.
Second.
without objection? Thank you, Barbara. Okay, 5C and D are settlements related to property, and is Attorney McLaughlin coming?
I'm calling that one.
So we will be going into executive session and then coming out and taking action on those, and then if there's anybody who has any item on appointments and nominations.
Does anything new about the settlement?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Did you hear about Will Hour?
No, I don't think so. No. No. Which one is Will? Oh, yeah, we saw.
No, the verdict came back against.
Oh, the jury, yes, no, I saw that.
Oh, you
yeah.
saw that.
Oh, that I did see, yes. Yeah, I did see.
First time ever under Wayne Fox's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never had a jury.
Isn't this the one where I wrote Wayne a note and said, I thought we ought to talk about that? And
Now we found out.
Yeah,
We really
yeah.
need to talk about it.
The RTM claims. RTM claims they don't want to settle.
Well, they're never wrong.
But the public will never know that.
No, that's the one we absolutely wanted to settle. Yeah, I mean,
No, we did.
Yeah,
We
I
were
know we did.
unanimous.
Do we have, but
Did we put it up for the night?
Wasn't there a difference in the, not just the claims committee, but in the
BET.
BET as well? I mean, isn't that one where you were asking
There-
who voted no?
Yes.
I think that's the one.
There were some who didn't, but the majority did.
Yeah, no, it was majority, but remember there was 4-2 or something like that. I
Yeah,
just
it
remember,
was a
maybe I don't
difference of like,
remember.
what,
Yeah, it was
$130,000.
ridiculous. It was just ridiculous.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, I thought we did that. Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
10:46.
Follow-up questions about the Eversource?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Actually, here are copies.
Oh, terrific. I'll definitely take them.
One of you will make a motion.
So 11:50, and I believe we were 10:46 or something. Did you have the time we went into? Okay, that's what I thought. No, 11:50. By the way, we don't have anything for appointments and nominations because we did everything, right?
What happened with, what did we do with,
Is it garage?
Okay, this is a resumption of the regular Board of Selectmen meeting of October 15th. For purposes of consideration, we heard 2 property tax appeal settlements, and at this time, I'm going to ask our recording secretary, Barb Hines, to read those cases for consideration of approval.
Here we have Barada versus the Town of Greenwich. They are looking to settle with the tax credit of approximately $14,800 against future tax payments. If the plaintiffs were to have prevailed at trial, based on their appraisal, they would have been entitled to a cash refund of approximately $25,480 plus interest and costs. So I need a motion.
Second.
Without objection.
The second case is Daniels versus the Town of Greenwich. And it can be settled for a tax credit of approximately $51,425 against future tax payments. If the plaintiffs were to have prevailed at trial, based on their appraisal, they would have been entitled to a cash refund of approximately $70,116 plus interest and costs. And I need a motion.
Second.
Without objection. That concludes the business before the Board of Selectmen today.
Move to adjourn.
Without objection. 11:54.